Good. Erev Tov, Chanukah Sameach. In the overwhelming number of instances of the calendar, Shabbat Chanukah coincides with the Shabbat of Miketz. There are rare exceptions when it is Parshat Vayeshev and only Parshat Vayeshev. But I think it's 82% of the time it comes with Parshat Miketz. So naturally, the Meforshim wanted to see a connection between the Parsha of Miketz and the story of Hanukkah. So there's a famous medrash that begins this week's Parsha. Vayhi Miketz shnosayim yomim ufaro choleim. It was at the end of this 2-year period of time, the 2 years that Yosef was imprisoned. Paro choleim, Paro dreamt. But the word choleim is not dreamt. It means Paro dreams. It's in the present tense. So the Medrash asks the question, why does it say choleim? Why doesn't it just say Paro cholam? Paro dreamt. And the Medrash also is perturbed. Why did these dreams disturb Paro so much? You know, people, he had too many latkes for supper. I mean, what's the problem here? Vatipoem rucho, he can't sleep. In the morning, he's crazy about it. He calls in all of his advisors. It becomes a national crisis. And what is there in the dreams that is so fearsome? He dreams of cows, he dreams of sheaves. Could be interpreted in many, many ways. And in fact, the Medrash says that his wise men interpreted it in many different ways. The stock market's going to go up, the stock market's going to go down. It's not such a thing. What's the deal here? So the Medrash here introduces a new idea. Paro cholein, they say, is that this was a constant dream of Paro. This wasn't a one-off, that he dreamt that there were 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows, or that there were 7 full sheaves and 7 empty sheaves. But in all the dreams that he had previously, the fat cows ate the lean cows, and the fat sheaves ate the lean sheaves, which is the natural order of things. The natural order is the more mighty, the more powerful, the better equipped. Are the ones that succeed, and those that are inferior physically or mentally or financially, they have a much harder time of it. So that was the dream he was accustomed to. And Paro dreams of a world empire. The Egyptian empire then was the largest in the Middle East. It was the cradle of that civilization. Even till today, we wonder at the majesty that once was Egypt and of the powers that it had. And here, all of a sudden, he has a dream, and the dream is completely reversed. In the dream, the lean cows eat the fat cows. The empty sheaves devour the full ones. And that's what disturbed him so, because it was a complete reversal of the dream that he had. And not only that, it's a complete reversal of the way he saw life and power and majesty and government. Might is right. Big is better. And here he has a dream that reverses that. And the dream repeats itself. And therefore, when he awoken in the morning, he was disturbed. He called in all of his advisors. Well, his advisors were accustomed to his regular dream. So they really had no answer to this dream either. Somehow, who knows what the dream meant? And they could not give Paro a satisfactory answer that would calm his feelings. The only one who could give him a satisfactory answer was Nar Ivri Eved, a lowly person, a Hebrew slave. It's not the people that the king consults with. But he is so disturbed that he wants to hear what this person has to say. And therefore, Yosef interprets the dream. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Why it's repeated twice. And not only he advances a program as to how to deal with the dream, and that all meets with Paro's favor. He says, and there, I never met anybody as smart as you. The story of Hanukkah is that same story. The story is Rabbi Biyad Matim, Tmeim Biyad Tahorim, Rishoyim Biyad Tzadikim, Zaydim Biyad Oskei Sorasecha. The wrong guys are winning. And that is really what disturbed the Greek Empire more than the rebellion itself. Because until then, they had an unmitigated, unstoppable run of conquest from the time of Alexander the Great, which was 325 before the Common Era approximately, and the Hashmonaim are at 165 before the Common Era. So you have 160 years straight, you're the superpower. So we can see in history that all superpowers don't end up being superpowers. And all empires don't end up being empires. And that England will never have Hong Kong again. That's just what history does. But they didn't see it. They only saw 160 years of success. And here comes this band of Hashmonaim, and they reverse the situation. and they defeat the Greeks. So that is the connection between Parshas Miketz and Hanukkah. It's the fact that the real dream, so to speak, is never the one that we think it is. It's never the one that we're accustomed to, that we're certain is going to happen. I always use as an example that when Theodor Herzl passed away in 1905, so the Zionist movement, Herzl had spent his entire personal fortune on financing the Zionist movement. And he died penniless. And the Zionist movement had remorse. And therefore, they accumulated a large pension fund on behalf of his widow and his children. Herzl has no descendants, by the way. One of his children, his daughter, died in the Shoah. One committed suicide. Very tragic. So they collected money, a lot of money. And they wanted to have a surefire investment that the family could live on forever. So at that time, Menachem Rosishkin, who is rapidly being repaired outside, he headed the JNF, Karen Kayemet. That's why Karen Kayemet and Rosishkin cross each other here. And he was raising money for the Karen Kayemet. And the Karen Kayemet then, as now, offers investments. You leave them a lot of money and they'll pay it out over at your direction over years. So he wanted that the Zionist movement should invest in the Karen Kayemet. But the financial advisor said, what do you think, we're crazy? So they bought bonds of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, gilt-edged bonds that ended up being completely worthless. So the dream is never what you think it is. And the Torah wants us to understand that. And therefore, Parshas Miketz is always Shabbat Chanukah, because they both point to the same idea as to how to look at life and the future and the proper dreams that the Jewish people should have. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotzah Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael L'Ficha Chir B'Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz L'Man Tzidko Yagil Torah Yadir.